Who is Jennifer Pokrandt and what is MEW Cat Rescue?
So I'm a lifetime resident of Northwest Arkansas my whole life.
Mhm.
So I've been here, I've seen the growth and see how the community has changed. MEW started in 2019, and we're a foster-based rescue.
Mhm.
We're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. So that means if when you're foster-based, that means you don't have any facility.
Mhm.
So that means all of the cats are in foster homes.
Mhm.
And we've saved about, around 4,500 cats now and
Wow.
still counting since 2019. And that's kind of all capacities of saving, right? That can be adopting, that can be TNR.
Mhm.
You know,
What's TNR?
TNR is trap, neuter, return.
Oh, okay.
So that's when maybe you have a set of colony cats, for
Mhm.
example, that live outdoors. And our goal for some of those cats is just to spay, neuter, and release them back where they are.
Mhm.
When you do that and you vaccinate them, then you're stopping, the spread of disease. You're stopping them from fighting, and you also kind of stop the population growth. But that's what a lot of people want
Yeah.
when they call us up and they're having that problem. 10 cats turns into 20, into 30, into 40, into 50,
Right.
into 60, and so on.
Right.
So spaying and neutering, stops that whole cycle.
Right. Have animals been a big part of your life since you were a kid?
Yes. And I was thinking about that when I was kind of preparing for this. I don't think I realized it, but my grandmother really probably started this for me.
Yeah.
She lived in downtown Springdale,
Okay.
and she just had cats after cats after cats. And, back then, the spay neutering wasn't as popular or as accessible. She toughed it out. I mean, I remember it being very tough for my mom and my grandma because there was just so many. But the back porch always had cats, kittens, and I think I just, my love for them probably grew there.
So your grandma, did she own the cats? Were they feral? Was
Oh,
she
they were just showing up.
really?
They were just showing up. I mean, because it's true that if you have food out, the
Mhm.
cats will come. They're searching for it, and they'll just show up. So when you start feeding, 1 or 2 or 3, then you've got, then you got 10, then you got 15, then you got 20. So and then they were breeding on top of it, so then you'd have kittens. So I don't think she ever intended to own any of them.
Mhm.
They were just around.
Right. So, did your grandma, or I guess what kind of influence did your grandma have on your life growing up? I mean, sounds like the cats was a big one. Was she a pivotal person in your life?
I mean, I just remember what a good person my grandma was, and I was with her all the time. So every day after school, my mom would come and pick me up from school, but then she would take me to my grandma's house, and she would actually go back to work for a little while and then come pick me up. So I was with my grandma every single day, and then also in the summers, I was just there the whole time until I could drive, really, and I could kind of venture out on my own. But yeah, she was a wonderful person. I mean, that kind of shows how her heart is, right? A lot of the people caring for these animals, most of the time, are people that can't afford it, who don't
Mhm.
have the resources.
Mhm.
They don't have the resources to feed them. They don't have the resources to get them to the vet.
Mhm.
I would say my grandma was probably one of those people who just had such a heart and she just couldn't say no.
Yeah. And so you said Muse started in 2019, correct?
Mhm.
What uh, what what was the trigger that caused you to start Mew?
Okay. Well, if I kind of tell a little bit of the story, and I'll keep it as short as I can. Um, my husband's a runner,
Mhm.
and so he was out running one day, and this happened a couple times that he would see cats. And at the time, I wasn't doing anything with cats. He just knew I like cats. So he told me that there was a group of cats over by the home office. So I started the Walmart home office. So I started feeding those cats. And that turned into a couple years venture. Um, but I got noticed out there feeding the cats because at one point there was construction in front of the home office and they rerouted the traffic
Mhm.
to where my cats were. And I'm out there in this little Mercedes feeding all these cats. And so many people had seen me and were asking me questions. Well, a rescue had noticed me as well. And I, at the time, didn't have any affiliation with the rescue. To be honest, I didn't even really know what a rescue was. I knew what a shelter was.
You were just following grandma's lead.
Yeah. I was just feeding the cats. They needed some help, and I knew that. Um, so then I got involved with rescue. And then as I got involved, I just I had a lot of ideas of my own about how I wanted to do it or how I felt I could, maybe it would be better if we did it this way or that way or, um, there's a lot of old thought within animal rescue, you know, kind of, going back to, like, the dog catcher type days,
Right.
so it's like, there's just it would be so much better if this and the lady that I was working with actually moved away too. She moved over to the East Coast, so, I just decided along with 2 other girls, there were actually 3 of us, to just start our own thing,
Mhm.
and that just took off from there, and because we had connections to the rescue community, we started off with a bang. I mean, it didn't take us any time. I think within a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, possibly 4, we had probably 200 cats already. I mean,
Was that overwhelming?
yes. Yes, I was working full-time and trying to do the rescue, and people were helping me some, but people weren't helping me to the extent I think I thought they were going to help me.
Right, yeah.
So then I was just kinda left there trying to which is okay, I mean, that's what I signed up for, but I was there kinda just trying to balance working with starting this whole new thing, which was really its own business. I
Yeah.
mean, even though it's a nonprofit, I mean, people were calling, people were needing help, and it was overwhelming.
So what were some of these ideas that you thought could be done better?
Um, some of it was that, marketing, fundraising, um there's not a need to restrict also, like with adoptions, for example. There's a lot of old thought of, don't adopt a cat this way, don't adopt a cat that way. Um, so just being a little more open. I mean, we're still very much trying to get the cats good homes, but you don't need to be so restrictive that you're kind of looking for reasons to not adopt to the community. Because if you don't adopt, then you can't save. Can only save if you can adopt.
Mhm.
Um, the marketing we do with the cats, in events, we try to connect to the community through, bingo, trivia, yoga, things like that are fun, that get people involved. Um, and also the other thing that I really wanted to do was I saw such a need in the community for help. And people think of Bentonville specifically as really affluent,
Yeah.
which it is to an extent, but there's also a lot of poverty
Mm.
in Bentonville and in the surrounding area. So one of the things we've done is a MEW Cares program. So it actually helps people with owned cats. So they may have a cat that like it just got hit by a car, but they can't afford to take it to the emergency vet. Otherwise this cat's going to die. And so a lot of people would try to surrender that cat, but we say, we don't have to. You don't have to surrender it. Let's get it the help that it needs, and then you get to keep your cat, and that's good for us too, because that keeps cats out of shelters and rescues, and with the family that they need to be with.
Was that one of these new ideas you had, or did that idea just kinda blossom as the rescue progressed?
It probably blossomed as the rescue progressed, yeah, because I think I was just so surprised. Um, by the amount of people who wanted to keep a cat. Maybe they found a cat too, and they wanted to keep the cat, but they couldn't afford to have it seen anywhere and didn't
Right.
know what to do with it
Mhm.
necessarily. So, yeah, helping the community, that was a big goal.
As you were getting the rescue started, what were some of the challenges that you faced?
There were lots of challenges. Volunteers, at first, we did have a lot of fosters, that came on board, but then I guess the biggest thing, if I was just gonna, like, sum it up, was how managing the people was gonna be so much harder than the cats. Like, the
Oh,
cats are
interesting.
easy,
Yeah.
it's the people, um, that are gonna maybe throw you for a loop, And it's just that interaction you have to have with them either, so if you think of 200 cats, how many fosters did we have to have for those 200 cats? I mean, I'm not gonna be able to do the math now, but in my head, but 30, 40, something like that at least. We just grew so quick, and all of those fosters need help, right? They need support. They don't necessarily know what to do with the kittens, especially when it's kittens. There's got to be daily weighing. You got to make sure they're weighing, that they're gaining weight every day. Um, and then probably the medical side was another big thing. So I knew some stuff, but I obviously didn't know quite enough. And you can get into into cost issues really quick with this. So when that first vet bill come in, I guess I was like, "Oh my goodness, what have I done to myself?" But luckily, the community stepped up, and we had a couple of other rescues that helped us in the beginning and, organizations that helped us in the beginning, and then it only took about 1 or 2 cycles of billing, and then we were off on our own. Um, so
So as you were getting going, of course, resource is a big issue,
mhm.
um, financial resources, people. How did you how did you gather those resources?
A lot of it, at first it was connections and networking. Um, but we advertised on social media. Um, we did, some if you use Facebook and things like that to kinda get to your target audience, we just grew so quickly. We grew an audience pretty quickly. So just, um and with kittens, if you post a cute picture of kittens,
Everybody wants to see it.
everybody was interested, and there were so many cute kittens, and people just kept coming, and then one person would tell another person, would tell another person, and it just kept growing. I do think there's some divine intervention somewhere.
So talk to me about that.
um, uh, Things just happen that I'll feel like a situation is completely hopeless. And maybe in the back of my head, I know it's not hopeless, but I got a lot of anxiety about it. So, there's been times I've taken 40 or 50 cats at a time and had them in a really small space. I'm stacking crates on crates on crates in that little garage
Yeah,
that I have.
yeah.
I have half of it, by the way, because there's a car in the other one. Um, and I would just think, this is going to take me a year. Like, I'm never going to find places for all these cats, and it's going to be so expensive. But then I just start asking for help. We send emails, social media posts, and it's like things just happen. So many people stepped up, and I mean, I think when I took that 40 or 50 cats, don't have exact numbers, but within probably 2 weeks, I was down to like 10. And the other day we had 2 feline leukemia cats, which feline leukemia is contagious to other cats. So if you think about our audience, most of them already
Yeah.
have cats, right? So trying to adopt to somebody, or they want other cats in the
Mhm.
future at least. So asking cat lovers to take a cat, which limits you to never having any other cats. And also, they don't live a long life. So cats with feline leukemia, there's statistics at 2 years, all the way to maybe 5 or 6 years. So you're actually also asking them to take on a sick cat who will die. It will die, and then they'll have to go through that, their children will have to go through that. Um, but within 24 hours, I had an adopter, and it was the absolute best person I could ask for. It was someone who had been through it before, who knew what was going to happen. She had already prepared her kids, and they just showed up. And then one day, there was somebody asking for a bag of food, a specific bag of food. This happened in like our first year. We didn't have, a whole lot of resources then, not as much as we have now, especially. Um, and it was a special bag of food, and like someone asked for it, and literally the next day it showed up at my door. That kind of thing, like it makes you feel like something is working beyond, just
So does this feel like it's bigger than cats?
yeah, definitely, definitely. Bigger than cats because those things just happen, you know, and also this is helping people. A lot of people see it as helping cats. There's a person behind every single cat, and there's somebody who's crying or somebody who's gonna be happy. Um, so it's just a people business as much as a cat related.
Seeing how cats influence people, is that a motivation for you?
Oh, definitely, yeah. There's a lot of sad moments, there's definitely death, that you have to experience, and there's sickness that you have to experience and sadness, but there's so much, happiness as well, to see the cats get homes, to see people be happy, um, to see them relieved, those if a cat's had an accident and, they don't have the means to care for the cat, but you can help them, I mean, people are just infinitely grateful,
Yeah.
so
Can you tell me about an instance where it was just kind of a devastating circumstance, where it just really tugged at your heartstrings as far as
Yeah.
seeing cats in poor shape?
Yeah, yeah, recently, actually, this is one of the very fresh on my mind, there was a situation about 3 hours from where we are. A mortgage officer had gone out to a foreclosed house, and when she got on site, there were cats everywhere. Unfortunately, not all of those cats were alive. A lot of those cats were deceased, and quite a number of them. And we wanted to help. It was 3 hours away though, but things had kind of come together again where I could go and help these cats. So, I tried to get somebody local, didn't really work out, and after a couple hours, I was like, "I'm going." So I just loaded up the truck and drove down, and we found a house, abandoned house, all the doors open, all the windows open, and just cats everywhere, and, there was another girl, Catherine Calling, I think she's with, oh goodness, now I'm not gonna remember the name. She's independent. I would say she's mostly independent, but she does some work with Candy's Cats Rescue down in, this is near it was near Morrilton. That's not the city, but it's kind
Mhm.
of, it's further down south towards Little Rock. Um, she met me there, and then we just started picking up cats, and I actually also didn't realize that a lot of these cats weren't friendly. Which should have been one of the first thoughts. This is not my first rodeo. I should have known that, but I think I was in such, adrenaline-filled moment that I just got in my truck and went and didn't think so much about that, so I was very thankful to have her there. But we picked up probably 10 that day, um and, there it was just horror on this property. There was, red pa w walls painted red, with a lot of symbolism on them that is quite jarring, and it's not just in one place, it's in multiple places. The dead animals on the property, to me, they did not look like they died any kind of natural death. Um, just the way the bodies are contorted, um and even the cats who look like they'd been deceased for a while still were just kind of in unnatural positions or in states of decay that just really didn't make sense to how they were laying there with, part of the body totally clean and some parts of the body just fully intact. Um, uh, it was a really bad experience, and then, um, the next day, uh Catherine and a couple other girls went out to the same place and went down into a deeper area of the house. I didn't venture too far in. I just took pictures kinda where I could see. But when they went a little bit further in this house, I mean, they found more dead animals, I would say a little bit more freshness to the situation, and definitely bodies contorted into just crazy positions. There were knives, there were tools that I don't quite know what they were trying to do with these cats, maybe kind of it looks like hangers, wire hangers maybe that they were using in some cases. We have blankets stained with blood, just anything you can think of. So, yeah, I mean, those photos are really shocking, and I think a lot of our viewers maybe kinda took a jolt with that when we put up those pictures, but, it is reality in some cases.
I think if I was out there and is I mean, I own cats and I love cats, but I think I would feel rage being out there and sorrow, and I think there would be a lot of feelings. What were some of those feelings that you had?
Yeah, I was enraged, but, I was also very much I was trying to figure out the situation with the cats who were still alive. Like, are they okay? So I think my adrenaline was really, "Oh my gosh, we have to get every cat that's here off." And I think I was also in a state to hurry because I know definitely Catherine was too. We were just looking around at this place, and the more we looked around, the scarier and creepier it got, and like, "We gotta get the heck out of here." So I went up there and, I even turned my car on at one point. Which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do thinking about it later. I mean, we don't know if there were people in the house. So anxiety, yes, anger, sadness, definitely shed a few tears just on the property, especially when we saw those cats and certain this had lost their life needlessly. And these cats were starved too. They were starved to death. I mean, they're long hair, a lot of them. So if you look at the pictures, they don't necessarily look completely emaciated because cats can hide that well. But, I mean, these cats were probably a lot of them were within days of their life. And we did lose 2 when they came to us, because at some point, a cat's organs just start to shut down without food, you know? And sometimes we get them in and we try to feed them, but they're just already too far
What's the
gone.
status of the other 8? So it's not like
Well,
you
we ended up with 15 total because the next day they went and got another 5. Um, I only have 2 left with me, and I have a foster for 1, and the other one will probably be adopted in the next week, so everybody's either in foster or adopted. A couple of the cats were just completely feral, and have gone to places where they can, like, live in a shop, you know, kind of indoor, outdoor, definitely being cared for, you know, still feed them, still vet care, but cats, you know, cats love barns and, you know, hay bales to climb on, and they take care of the mouse population, you know, so a couple of them are there, but we definitely send them in pairs, you know, or even a couple of them if we can, um, and they're all family. I think all of these cats acted I don't know if they're truly related, but all of these cats kind of acted like when we got them back, you know, um, to Northwest Arkansas, like, they were cuddling up, you know, and they definitely were familiar with each other.
sounds like there's a solution for every cat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. There's been so many that I looked at and thought, "Okay, you're gonna be here forever."
It's kinda like
Yeah.
a dating site. You run a dating site. You've got you've got your cats on one hand, you've got your adopters on the other, and it's trying to match.
Right. You're right, that's a great way to think about it, I never thought of that, but yeah, you totally are. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
trying to match personalities and home lives and, um, yeah, socialization needs of the cat,
yeah.
yeah, to all these different characteristics.
So, the mission statement of MEW Cat Rescue, it says, "MEW Cat Rescue is dedicated to helping cats in need through adoption, medical care, education, and community outreach programs." Why is it all 4 of those and not just 1?
Yeah, they all work together, right? So definitely education is a big piece of it. A lot of people don't realize that a female cat, for example, can get pregnant as early as 4 months. Yeah, so it's really early, and a lot of times, you know, people will go adopt a kitten. It accidentally gets outside. It's not spayed yet. Cat comes back, has kittens. People who own the cat are somehow surprised that
Yeah,
now their cat has kittens,
yeah,
and it just goes on a roll, right? So, there is a cat overpopulation problem, in Northwest Arkansas. We still have a problem, but of course, we've got a lot of good people here, and we've got people moving in all the time, right? So we definitely have a good adopter base here, but you've gotta educate people about spay neuter and about why that's so important. And you've got to pull your community along with you if you want to be successful, you know? So, um, doing certain programs like maybe, you know, a bottle feeding class to teach people about bottle feeding or, um, you know, social media to tell the story too about, you know, if you find kittens, what should you do? That's really important. And then even education around TNR. Because if we don't do the trap neuter return to spay and neuter, this problem persists. So that's really the answer and the key to it all because we can't adopt our way out of the situation that we're in. Even here in Northwest Arkansas, there are more cats than people.
right.
We have no idea how many. There's a couple of numbers that have been thrown out years ago, which probably don't apply at all anymore. But we can't adopt our way out of it. People have to spay neuter. People have to be educated, and they also have to realize that a cat is a lifetime commitment. Um, there's a lot of people moving. Surrenders are really through the roof, which you obviously sometimes have those circumstances that you can't get around. But when people adopt, you know, we do want them to think about what will you do if something happens to you, or to your family, or what if you lose your job? You know, what if you have to move back home? Like, what's going to happen to those animals? We just want people to be thinking early about their solution to that.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's
a lot
it's
of people maybe jump into pet ownership without thinking long term. They're
They
looking
do.
at this cute little
Ex
kitten and not expecting
to
the
grow.
yeah,
They grow, yeah.
yeah.
They're only little for very short amount of time.
So, we've touched on adoption, we've touched on education, so medical care and, I guess community outreach you touched a little bit on, and talk to me a little bit about medical care as part of your mission statement.
Yeah, so part of that is just, the routine spay neuter. A lot of the cats come in ill. Little kittens especially, they're super, super vulnerable. They don't have defenses. So I would say most of the cats, just about all of the cats will come in with an upper respiratory. So we're sorting through all of those little things that cats and kittens have. Upper respiratory, diarrhea, worming, that the cats eat birds, they eat, mice, all that stuff, and it all gives them worms, right? So they get fleas in the summertime, they have ticks. The ticks can be deadly. There's bobcat fever, that some people know about. I
As
think you
I
may have
do.
been through that. Yeah, if you've got outdoor cats, really Seresto collars are the best thing we can do for them because there's more and more of these ticks. There's a specific tick called a Lone Star tick, and it has a little dot on
Little white
its
dot.
back, yeah. Um, and if that cat if just one bite can kill a cat, and they're also on bobcats, and there's surprisingly, I think, more bobcats in the area than some people may know,
Yeah.
definitely more than I knew. It doesn't kill the bobcat, but it kills the cat. So there's all of that, and then on top of it, there's just such a need in the community, um, with people who have owned cats or who want to take in a cat and can't. They can't afford it. So we've got our whole MEW Cares program where we help people with owned animals or with animals that they, maybe have found and want to take care of when they can't afford it. And it's vet care, but it could also be just food, especially for colonies. There's a lot of people that have a colony, and that can be anywhere from 10 to, gosh, it can be 100, but, probably on average 20, 30 cats at a time. Yeah, and a lot of people the people who are usually doing this aren't the people who can necessarily afford to feed and vet 20, 30 cats. So we help support that too, because we wanna get them spayed and neutered, and then, you want the cats to be as healthy as possible. That's good for all of us, so we wanna continue the vet care, and we wanna make sure that they get food and all of their basic needs. So it's about helping the community too.
Do you have multiple programs? It sounds like you've got the adoptions side, the TNR, the the care program. What did you
Mhm.
call it
MEW
again?
Care.
MEW Care. Okay. What are some of the other programs that you provide?
Um Honestly, that's probably about it. I would say an adoption program, a foster program, trap, neuter, return, MEW Cares. We do have a Petco program, where we adopt cats out at Petco. And a lot of the times we've tried to help kind of more rural shelters, with being able to have an outlet for their cats. So sometimes we'll take cats from more rural areas and bring them up here because, as you get south, especially, well, even north, anywhere outside of Northwest Arkansas, it's harder to adopt in those spaces. There's just not as many people that want to adopt or have the resources to adopt, um, like we do here. Northwest Arkansas is growing and it's just getting, bigger and better all the time. So we try to help some of those outside areas. So I guess that would also be a program. I think that's enough.
So explain to me cat yoga.
Oh, yeah, 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 cat yoga. Yeah, it's usually kittens. And, we wait till the kittens are, I guess, they definitely need to be weaned. And the sweet spot is probably around 8 weeks to 12 or something like that. But yeah, we partner with Yoga Story, down here on the square, and there's a location in Rogers. And we bring the kittens in, and really, the people buy a special ticket for kitten yoga. They know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
And then everybody gets in and kinda sits down, and we say what we're gonna bring in the kittens and tell a little bit about Mew, and then we just let them go in the room. And then after that, I can't promise how many people are doing their yoga or doing it the right way, because the cats can be quite disruptive, right? But people love it, and some of the cats are just great and will kind of wander through the room and let people just pat them and stuff, Some of them are gonna run and hide. We had a couple that'll, like, sit in the litter box and don't wanna come out. So, yeah, we try to bring in the socialized kittens, and it's a great, outlet for adoption too, because everybody who's in the room is already a cat lover.
Who brought this idea up? Because it's pretty clever.
Um, I think one of our social media girls, since we've got a really strong, great social media team. I think one of them brought it up, but it is a thing. I would say kitten yoga is popular around the country, um, and done in kind of different. Sometimes a rescue or a shelter will bring a yoga instructor in, to the facility. So since we don't have a facility, we go to Yoga Story. But yeah, it is a thing. It's just not something that had been done here yet. So
Nice.
yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about some of your volunteers and supporters, because and what they mean to you, because it's such a critical part of the success of MEW.
Yeah. Yeah. Fosters. Fosters and volunteers both are they're priceless, really. I mean, it may sound kind of cliche, but we really couldn't save any cats without these volunteers, right? Since we don't have a facility, since we don't have a building to bring the cats to, if you don't have a foster home, you can't save the cat. So, like, we literally just don't life save without people.
Mm.
And then you need volunteers, to support the organization. So, like, when we have cats in Petco, someone has to go and check on those cats and feed those cats and clean their litter boxes. So you can't put cats in Petco without people to go and care for the cats at Petco. So it is truly reliant on people volunteering and being willing to, I say sacrifice. I mean, it's a good feeling, to help. So it's beneficial for everybody. And cats, cats make us feel good. Cats regulate serotonin. Um, there's even some discussion that they can help prevent suicide. They give people purpose. Any kind of animal can do that, and a cat can definitely do that too, to give just purpose to someone to get up in the morning, maybe if they don't have it. But without these people, we just literally don't. And even if we had a building, we still couldn't run without people. And you never want all of your cats in, a shelter type of environment anyway, so you're always dependent on those foster homes. To help socialize the cats. That's how they get used to being in a home. They get used to the dishwasher. They get used to the chaos of kids running around, and that helps them prepare for their next family. And used to other animals too, dogs, whatever people have.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big deal.
Nice.
Uh, your other question, supporters.
Supporters, yes.
That's a big one because, some people will see the fees on our cats for adoption or anybody's cats. This is just the way it's perceived sometimes, is that the fees are high. So our average fee is somewhere between $60 and $80. That $60 to $80 does not cover what we spend on the cats. So I can say with, like, literally every single cat, we are what I term, I don't know if it's correct or not, but I term it underwater. We're underwater with every single cat. So, when people pay $80, I mean, you've got to think of how long we've had the cat. Just go to the store, you know how much a case of food costs, a bag of litter costs, and add those up, especially with kittens. They eat so much. I'm sorry, they're pooping constantly, right? Most of them will have diarrhea or something. They all do. They all have it at some point. So there's a lot of medical care. You've got sickness on top of spay, neuter, vaccines, microchips, testing for feline leukemia and FIV. So donations are really how we survive. So without supporters, whether it's $5 or a couple $100, I mean, every dollar is crucial to us continuing. We just literally, I mean, we would be bankrupt by now. We would just, we'd owe the vets money by now if people weren't supporting us. So it's priceless. I can't put it's emotionally, like, the level of of thankfulness that I have and the cats have. I mean, it's beyond comprehensible the way that we need people, whether it's volunteering, fostering, donating, all those things.
What are some of your greatest needs at the moment?
Um, we're at the cusp of kitten season. They're out there, but most of the mamas are pregnant right now. So what's coming in right now is a lot of pregnant mamas. But we need kitten fosters. That is really, really big because it's gonna hit any moment. It's kinda like they start falling out of the sky at some point. I don't know, they just all reach age at the same point. And it's kinda, I think, according to, like, the weather cycles. Like a cat in heat, when she goes into heat and she gets ready for that mating, it's kind of all at the same time. It's like they're on some kind of schedule. But it's in tune with the weather, right? So if the weather is warm in December, I mean, the cats are gonna mate. So also that it gets longer every year. Um, or you're having kittens, come in when you don't expect it necessarily, but there's a big boom that's about to happen. When the kittens get to, like, a certain age, especially when they start walking, the moms actually seem to bring them out and, like, let's say that the mom is getting fed at the house in Bella Vista, the house in the cul-de-sac in Bella Vista. They're just feeding the mom. They probably saw she was pregnant. They probably know she's got kittens somewhere. When those kittens are big enough, one day the whole family's just gonna come walking up on the back porch, and then that's when we'll get the call. But we need people for those cats.
So I guess 2 questions is when should people call you, and what is the commitment for fostering kittens?
Um, people can I mean, there's a lot of complications around kittens when they're small. I guess that's something we like to, explain to people. Sometimes people will see a kittens, in a group or just single kittens and think, "I need to pick it up and save it." In some cases, that's true, but when you're talking about little bitty babies, like, 0 to 4 weeks, they're reliant on their mother, and, so one thing we want people to know is if you find a kitten that small and you can just Google this, but when they're little, I mean, these things, they weigh ounces, right? Literally ounces. Their eyes are closed for the first 2 weeks, and then they have little tiny, tiny ears, um but we want if you find kittens that size, we really want you to try to wait for mama to come back. And I know it's easy to just wanna pick them up, but let's say the kittens are in a pile, they're clean, they're fluffy, they're peacefully sleeping. I would say don't disrupt those kittens because you can't mama's not sitting there in front of you, but she is around. Maybe she went to go hunt, and that's how she's sustaining herself to feed the kittens, so we want people to kinda wait. Now, if you find the group of kittens and they're screaming and you know, they look lifeless, or something like that, that's when definitely, yes, you need to call. Or let's say you found a kitten on a railroad track, obviously, like, the kitten's not gonna make it, or a kitten in the yard with a bulldog or something. Um, but there's a lot of cases that actually it can be counterintuitive to pick up the cat because we really need mama. For one thing, she's got the milk, right? So if you don't have a mama cat, you need a bottle feeder. A bottle feeder has to feed kittens like every 2 hours. Yeah, so that's a big job for somebody. There are not bottle feeders just out there waiting. That is one thing we need, by the way, if there's any bottle feeders out there, we definitely need you. Those calls are starting to roll in. But these are special people that know how to do it because it does take expertise. You can aspirate a kitten really easily. So you've got to be very careful with it. And people that have the time and people that have the patience to do it. Um, so when you pick up those kittens, if you think that somebody's just out there waiting to take that kitten and keep it alive, they're not. Plus, the mom has antibodies and things in that milk that just sustain them. So anytime we pull kittens from the mom, we see illness. And it may not happen right away, but for some reason, just that break with mama, all of a sudden they're sick. Um, so that's something we'd want people to know. What was your second question?
And then the commitment for fostering.
Oh, so once it kinda depends, like, how long when it comes to kittens depends on when you get the kittens. So if we bring in a kitten, with or kittens with mom, for example, that are 4 weeks old, um, you're gonna keep them generally until they're about 12 weeks. So it's really not a long commitment with kittens. It's probably, like, generally 8 to 14 weeks. And it's kind of up to the people as well, so a lot of people may foster with the intention of adopting, so maybe they hold on to them a little bit longer, and people almost always you will become attached, that's just the way it is, especially with kittens, but, it's really not that long, unless you have something. Now, it's always I can't ever promise that. I can't promise you it's gonna be 8 weeks or 12 weeks because things happen, right? Sometimes the cats get ill, different things will kind of disrupt that normal timeline, but I would say in normal kittens adopt easily, especially here in Northwest Arkansas, so you're not gonna have any trouble finding somebody to love them. So,
So fostering is a bigger challenge than the adopting for kittens.
yes, I would say so. Yeah.
So I know last October there was the fire out at the recycling center, and there
Mhm.
was a little kitten that it suffered either smoke inhalation or burning.
Yeah.
Where what's the status on that little kitty?
He was adopted by his foster. Um, so he's she and this whole story, I guess, kinda how that happened was a lady was just walking and found the cat just kind of collapsed out there around the area the fire happened, and she called us and wanted to get it help. It started out as kinda one of those MEW Care situations where we thought we might help her, to keep the cat, but we ended up taking the cat on, and Tiffany Griggs, and she is an amazing, amazing foster. She has tons of experience. We needed somebody with a little bit more medical expertise for this, obviously, because of, the cat wasn't just a typical cat to foster. This cat needed bandage changes and needed to be taken to the vet quite a few times for infections and things like that. I think we amputated at least one of its toes that just couldn't heal and, could have become necrotic or something if we hadn't taken it off. Um, but that cat, stayed with Tiffany, and Tiffany's heart just grew and grew for it, and so now the cat lives with Tiffany.
Oh, that's
So,
a nice success story.
yes, yes, a lot of times people will say foster fail, but I say foster win. We're thankful if a foster adopts, Well, of course, we want people to keep fostering, but, in this situation, they grew so bonded. I think she even kept him in an incubator
Oh,
for
wow.
weeks, and, those are typically for baby kittens, but she kept a full-grown cat in an incubator.
So, but all of your foster or adopting families don't necessarily need to have that much
Oh, no,
experience.
no,
You can
no.
you can have a beginning and give them the training they
Yeah.
need to
Mhm.
successfully
Yeah.
foster and adopt.
You don't even have to have had a cat. We'll take you through the whole thing, and we provide all supplies too, so nobody needs to worry. We like it. If a foster can provide supplies, that's beneficial to us, but we will absolutely provide everything, including the vet care. So, we just have to kind of guide the fosters through it.
So, I guess in closing, what is a message that you would like to share with your sponsors, your volunteers, your followers, maybe something that you haven't shared yet that's important that people need to hear?
Well, definitely, I guess I wanna say thank you. Um, Me particular, I'm so busy kinda running. We don't have a large group of volunteers. I mean, we actually we do have a large group of volunteers, but there's not always enough time to tell people thank you, so I think sometimes I just wanna tell everyone again thank you for supporting, whether that's donating, volunteering, even if you're just sharing social media posts or just commenting on social media, all those things, we wanna thank people for that. Um I think I would probably just reinforce the TNR message that we can adopt our way out of this, so we just want everybody to think about finding low-cost resources for yourself or working with a rescue or shelter to try to TNR cats. I was the same person when I first started in rescue. I was feeding a colony. This is embarrassing for me to say. I was feeding a colony. I did not fix those cats. I did not, and now I feel, like, how was I not educated enough to know that? But I was guilty of the same thing. Now, in my head, I knew I needed to, and I was thinking about that, but n it had been, probably months, and I still hadn't. tried to do anything. So definitely want people to hear that message, and to spay and neuter early. 4 months is the time frame that a female kitten can go into heat. Um, so that's some let me see if there's anything else on here. One other thing is kinda like the difference, I guess, between a shelter and a rescue. A lot of people don't understand that. So when you're talking to, like, a shelter, for example, a lot of times there's paid staff and there's a facility. Um, when you talk about a rescue like we are, we're kind of volunteer based. I mean, we're all volunteer based, so nobody's paid. There's no salaries coming in. So a lot of times people will think, that we run like a business, and I totally understand that expectation, and we do to an extent. But sometimes people will call and want us to come out right away, or they want us, they can't understand why we have to say no. So we kind of do want people to understand that like a rescue is people just giving up their time, right? Totally volunteer. We can't always be available, or maybe we're not available in the time frame. So it's nice for people to just kind of understand that piece of it, or that we may ask you to be a part of the solution. So if you find a cat and you really want to save it, or a pair of kittens, we're probably going to ask you if you can foster first. And then if you can't, of course, we'll go and look for someone. But if you're wanting a colony of cats TNR'd, we sometimes we have people to do TNR resources available, sometimes we don't. So we may ask you to participate in this. We may ask you to, if I give you traps, can you trap and actually take the cat to the vet? We pay for the vet service and then they return the cat. So it's kind of collaborative. So that's a lot of times what rescues are good at, but also just like, we're probably going to pull you in and have you experience this with us. So that's big things.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down and talking with me. I know you've helped us out with some cat situations before, and so I appreciate your help. And I just love the fact that you're finding a way to serve in a meaningful and unique way, and that you're not only helping cats, but you really are helping people and inspiring people. And I think that's a good message. And I'd imagine people will hear this and be inspired by the work you do, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
So,
Yeah. I would tell people go to mewcatrescue.com.
okay,
That's our website. You can go on there and, read about fostering, check out the cats we have for adoption. That's a good resource. And we try to put things out there for people to learn about, like
okay.
TNR and that sort of thing. And then, of course, our social media pages. We're on Instagram, Facebook, a little bit of TikTok, so people can find us out there.
And then how do people donate if they
We have Venmo. You can donate via our Facebook page, and then on the website, there's just a donate button in the upper right-hand corner. And of course, if people want to mail something, we have a PO box we can give people, but donations are certainly appreciated. Like I said, we're kind of underwater on those adoption
Yeah,
fees, so we can't operate without them. So just super thankful to people that help.
perfect. Alright. Well, thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Alright.
Thank you for having me.